Interested in learning about wine, but not sure where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I'm your host, Haley Bowman, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm a wine enthusiast turned wine educator and founder of the Seattle-based wine tasting business, Cork and Fizz. It is my goal to build your confidence in wine by making it approachable and lots of fun. You can expect to learn everything from how to describe your favorite wine to what to pair with dinner tonight, and so much more. Whether you're a casual wine sipper or a total cork dork like myself, this podcast is for you. So grab yourself a glass and let's dive in. Welcome back to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I am so glad you're here. This is your first time here. Welcome. So excited that you wanted to come hear me talk about wine. And of course, if you've been here for a while, thank you so much. Your support means so much to me. All right, so today we're going to be hearing the second part of my interview with Hanna and Michael Shaps. And if you haven't heard part one, you're like, oh crap, wait a second, part two. I highly recommend pausing this episode and going back and listening to episode 76 first. I mean, you don't have to, but it might make more sense. As a reminder, Michael and Hanna are the father-daughter duo behind Maison Shaps, a French-American winery in Burgundy that I got to visit during my trip out there. All right, let's dive into the interview. Okay, I'm going to take us back to just the kind of the Burgundy region. For a lot of folks listening, I think Burgundy sounds really confusing. Are they, whenever they just bring up the world of French wine in general, it's like, oh my God, and then Burgundy, what do I know? What would you say is most important to know about the region?
Since I give tastings, I'll take this one, but do a lot of tastings. I think the best and most important thing to know about Burgundy is what matters is where the grapes are growing and then who makes the wine. Because in Burgundy, we have this amazing concept of the climatic system, the parcellary system, which kind of dominates the entire winery. I mean, that's what Burgundy is made from and made of. And it's this historical system. And it basically is telling you that grapes in the one specific spot versus even 10 meters away have these identical growing conditions with their exposition, their soil, their slope, the wind, etc. And so that they're going to produce a specific tasting wine, whereas, 10 or 15 rows away, you have a different soil or a subsoil, and it's going to make a difference. And then who is farming those grapes adds the last element. And that's really the key from Burgundy. So to taste as much as you can, to try to identify which villages or which appellations suit your palate, and then dig deeper, which plots, which producers, which vintages, and kind of build your knowledge base from there.
All right. I like that. Because I thought that was very interesting while I was there. There was a lot of talk of well, Pomar makes this kind of flavor and kind of, or you'll notice this versus, this region does this instead. And even just talking about the difference between those and learning, which one suits your palate. I will say for anybody listening wanting to learn, I don't think it's necessary to learn all the regions at once. That would be very overwhelming. I like, Hanna, your technique of taste them. And as you go, kind of make notes about which ones stand out to you and which ones you like that flavor of.
The more you learn about Burgundy, you learn that specific villages or specific subregions have a flavor profile, right? So if you're looking, say you were like, I want to drink Burgundy tonight, but I'm having oysters. You're like, which Burgundy? And then you're like, oh, maybe a Saint-Romain or maybe a Chablis. And then you can dig deeper based on the flavor you want. And then from there, you go to specific plots or specific, Premier Cru or even a Grand Cru from the general area. And that really gives you a jumping off point.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about your wines at Maison Shaps. What is your winemaking process like? What makes kind of each of the bottles different for those that kind of, because do you sell, I did want to double check. I know you sell in your Virginia tasting room. Does your wine make it outside of Virginia as well or to Canada at all?
The wine has been sold in Canada over the years. We've been in Ontario, not on a regular basis, and we do sell along the Mid-Atlantic region. But we're small, and originally before Hanna came into the business, everything was sold through the winery in Virginia. The majority, we have a distributor in Virginia that was selling it, but we could sell most of the production direct to consumers. And then Hanna has now been developing other markets for us while she's in Burgundy. So we are now shipping to Denmark and England and UK, and
a couple
we have a few others. And so it's starting to, and then now we open the tasting room, the Caveau in Merceau. So we're selling more direct. So everything's shifting a little bit, which is good timing because, Burgundy prices have gone up and consumption is going down. So it's good to be a little diversified. So yeah, so that's, in terms of the production and breakdown of, but, we're making the wines, more traditionally is what we try to do. All the vinification, all the ferments are non-inoculated, or if you want to call it natural, or whatever the terms are for yeast. We don't add any yeast, so it's more trying to really respect the sense of place, terroir, doing that. So that's traditional method. And same with the reds, where we do a high percentage of whole berry, whole cluster Pinots. And that's a style that I prefer that goes hand in hand with the natural, slower vinification process. And so, a little bit more old school with some modern, not technique, but maybe, how would you say, practices. Refrigeration is important and sanitation is important, that maybe not all Burgundian producers are on top of. And so we've implemented a few techniques in terms of maintaining quality from some, U.S. practices that when I first started harvesting in Burgundy in 2005, when we were buying grapes out and going on the field and harvesting the fruit from growers, they were kind of looking at us like we were crazy because we were harvesting in small lugs like we do instead of big bins or bigger lugs. And I also, back in 2005, nobody was renting refrigerated trucks to carry the fruit in or to hold the fruit in because a pick could take all morning. Instead of leaving the fruit out in the sun all morning in the heat, we were putting them in, a refrigerated truck to hold it. And that didn't exist. Now it does. Now you see, what I've seen is that a lot of the current winemakers in Burgundy, all are next generation. They've all done internships abroad in Australia and California, and they've learned some of these techniques and now have implemented a lot of these things that, I've been doing for a while. And so it's interesting to see the change in the past 20 years in Burgundy, that's kind of still maintaining the traditional winemaking approach and philosophy, but emphasizing some things that could really help ensure quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick reminder, if you are not on my mailing list yet, what are you waiting for? I would love for you to join. When you do, you'll get a free shopping guide that has 15 of my favorite wines under $15. Head to corkandfizz.com, scroll down to the bottom, and there'll be a little section where you can join the mailing list. I send out a weekly newsletter filled with wine tips, recommendations, special offers, and so much more. Now, let's get back to the show. I want to talk about one of your specific bottles that reminded me when I was thinking of the tasting. So when I think of Burgundy, I tend to think of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Those are like the two main varieties. But I know when I tasted there, we tasted a really wonderful Aligoté. Can you tell us a little bit about that grape and why is it special?
Yeah, so Aligoté is now up to 6% of the production in Burgundy. It used to be kind of the lesser respected, lesser known white varietal because it used to be made maybe in a style that was more acidic. It's generally kind of tends to be a bit more not as buttery and round as
so it is a traditional higher acid varietal and a little green, and it was always treated as the other white grape, so it wasn't getting a lot of attention, especially when the Chardonnays were really hot and trendy past 20, 30 years. And now with, with prices going up and people, trying to find more value, and then you throw in global warming, Aligoté is ripening a lot better, a lot more heat. So it's not as acidic. So it's really, it still has great acidity, but it's not, we're noticing that, the harvest dates are earlier and earlier every year. So we're getting a little bit different. Now that's hurt some of the other varieties that we want more acidity in, whether it's Chardonnay, Pinot, but the Aligoté has benefited from this. And so the style is changing. And I've been a big fan of Aligoté it's been, our first production was in 2012. So not that long ago, and I've always done a style with some skin contact and, barrel ferment and stainless, a blend of the two. And so we were able to get a hold of a parcel in Boozéron, which is the main appellation for Aligoté, and we were very lucky. Our parcel, the Boozéron Les Clous, is just under a hectare, about 3/4 of a hectare that we have, and it's an amazing site, just incredible slope exposure.
One of the more solar sites.
Yeah, it's a very hot site with a lot of rocky limestone soil that reflects a lot of heat. So it ripens very early, compared to some other
It takes like
sites.
2 or 3 weeks before some of our peers in the region.
Yeah, it's a really interesting site. So we've been, loving it and loving the winemaking. We do, skin contact. Then we do,
Like
both.
old oak.
We blend stainless and oak, and so it's been really appreciated, the style that we're doing, and very, very excited about the potential.
And on a personal note, I really enjoyed being part of the Boozéron syndicate called the ODG, and it's like the people that are everyone who's making Boozéron there's meetings, there's required tastings, there's activities, and it's really just to promote Aligoté from Boozéron, and Boozéron is Aligoté. And so it's been really nice to kind of be part of that community and kind of champion this lesser known varietal from this village that many people still don't know is producing and has, produced really qualitative Aligoté. And so we've had blind tastings of like 30 different Aligoté from Boozéron to see if there's like consistency. There's, presentations, meetings, and it's really, for me, been a nice community to kind of enhance my knowledge and participate in. And I've appreciated that.
Oh, it's so cool. So because Boozéron is like, because normally I tell people if you want to find Aligoté, it needs to say it on the bottle, right? It would say Burgundy and Aligoté, but Boozéron, is Aligoté that's the only white wine they make?
Under the appellation Boozéron.
Yeah, the name Boozéron is now synonymous since 1996 with the Aligoté grape.
Okay.
So Pommard is Pinot Noir. Boozéron is Aligoté, and it's the only Aligoté at the village level in all of the 5 subregions of Burgundy. So it really is synonymous with that grape. And to be a Boozéron, you have to be an Aligoté.
Okay, cool. Good to know. I feel like it's just always nice to know these things and what to look for, but we could do a whole podcast. I do plan on having a separate podcast about like learning a little bit more about what to look for on a Burgundy bottle, because that is a lesson in and of itself. I'm curious, is there a wine you don't currently make in Burgundy that you would like to? This podcast is sponsored by VoChill. When you're enjoying a glass of wine, temperature matters, and you don't need to be a wine expert to know this. You know this the minute you realize you forgot to put the bottle of wine in the fridge, and now you're stuck with lukewarm Sauvignon Blanc that is the opposite of refreshing. You know adding ice cubes will just water the wine down, but it seems like it's your only option. Not anymore. I want to introduce you to one of my favorite wine gadgets, VoChill. This gadget is as simple as it is elegant. It will keep wine perfectly chilled in your own wine glass. No more clunky metal or plastic tumblers or ice in your wine. While this gadget is an absolute must during the summer months, I don't enjoy wine without it from June to September. It's also incredibly useful for those days when you're craving a glass of white or rosé, but you don't want to wait for the bottle to chill in the fridge. VoChill offers a stemmed and stemless chiller in multiple colors, so you're bound to find one that's perfect for you. They also make the perfect gift. I should know, I got one for my mom at Christmas a couple years ago, and she loves it. Head to vochill.com, that's VOCHILL.com, to get your perfect wine chiller, and don't forget to use code CORKANDFIZZ for 15% off your order. This podcast is sponsored by the Cork Crew Virtual Wine Club. Interested in trying new wines, but not sure where to start? Or maybe you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you love the idea of tasting wine live with me. If that's you, come join my Cork Crew Virtual Wine Club, and you'll get to sip wine with me twice a month while I help you find new favorite wines. The Cork Crew is not your ordinary wine club. This is a community of people who are passionate about exploring new flavors, learning about different wine styles, and having fun along the way. And the best part about this club, purchasing the wine is completely optional. Plus, all events are recorded, and you have access to the full library of recordings as a Cork Crew member, so you can always catch up if you can't make it live. Oh, and did I mention it's virtual, which means you get to do all of this from the comfort of your sofa in your PJs. No need to worry about driving in crappy traffic, finding a designated driver, or spending an arm and a leg on a taxi. Want to give it a try without the commitment? You're in luck. Right now, I'm offering a free class pass to anybody who wants to try out the Cork Crew Virtual Wine Tasting Club. With this pass, you'll be able to join a Cork Crew event of your choosing. No strings attached. I don't need your credit card. I don't need you to sign up for anything. You'll be my guest. Simply head to corkandfizz.com/free class pass to get your class pass and be one step closer to becoming a member of the best wine tasting club around, the Cork Crew. I can't wait to see you there. Now let's get back to the show.
There's lots of villages and
Roman Conti, right?
no, there's a lot. Of course, you always want to have some other terroirs to work with, other appellations.
Like Polini,
there's nothing.
Polini that you
My favorite is I love Polini, Montrachet
Folatier,
but that's these are always dreaming maybe something. I never thought I'd actually be able to buy land in Burgundy either. So you never know. You never know. Right now, we're thrilled to have what we have, and our vineyard holdings in Volnay and Pommard primarily are fantastic. And so, you just never know. Opportunity comes up. There's plenty of places we'd like to
implant in.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like you couldn't go wrong with pretty much most spots in Burgundy. So besides your winery, I feel like this is a great opportunity to kind of learn about what are some of your favorite wineries, both in Burgundy and Virginia, that you would recommend. This is a question I always love to ask, like wineries that I enjoy, because usually they can take me to other wineries that if I enjoyed yours, I'm going to enjoy theirs.
Why don't you go for Virginia and I'm going to make
Well, it's hard to do that. I don't want to leave people out. There's so many, there's the kind of the legends that have been around that are well known that obviously have been respected and gained the trust of the wine buying public. So those are obviously for me too, the best producers and I in Virginia, Jim Law at Linden Vineyards. If everyone gets a chance to go there, I'd highly recommend that. He's a legend and makes great wines. And then really the Charlottesville area, there's so many great wineries that are.
And it went well. You could speak to the wine enthusiasts, Central Virginia.
Oh yeah, the Monticello AVA, and which is the area around Charlottesville, was chosen last year as a wine region of the year by the Wine Enthusiast magazine. So it's really starting to get some exposure, and all the wineries there are really, in terms of Virginia's top producers, are kind of coming out of the Charlottesville, the Monticello AVA. So there's so many great wineries there, whether it's Barboursville or King Family or Pollock. Those are just to name a few. They're all great producers that I respect their wine.
Yeah. And in Burgundy, it's hard because I have a lot of friends and colleagues who I admire and who make wonderful wine, but who also don't develop their tourism. So it's kind of a tricky kind of balance to suggest, because I know that if I suggest them, they're not always able to welcome visitors. And then there's places that do an amazing welcome, but I'm maybe less close to the team there. So there's, a couple small places in Pommard. There's a couple small wineries in Meursault. But I think what I can recommend for sure is a website called Rue des Vignerons. And that's actually a French platform for a lot of different wine experiences and winery visits in especially the French wine regions. And they have a great selection of small Burgundian producers who welcome visitors in a really approachable manner and not just the big ones. But I also will say, if you do come to Burgundy, it's important to go to a Pétriarche or a Drouin, because they have an amazing, or Chateau de Meursault, you can see these amazing cellars, these historical properties. And I think it's a great balance to do at least one larger format or larger style producer. And then maybe wherever you're staying, your accommodation, they usually will have a list of small producers they recommend, or, kind of wander around the villages and see if someone has a sign that says they're open and just pop on in and say, hey.
Oh, I love it. I'll have to have you send me the website, because for those that don't speak French, I was like, I do not know what that is, but I'll put it in the show notes for everyone. I think that's a great suggestion. Okay, we already asked about whether the wines are available. And then finally, just the last question here for folks that are visiting Burgundy, how can they come taste your wines?
I am one of those few people in Burgundy who answer my email. So you just email me. You go on our website, you email me, and we have an email dedicated for our tasting program. So it's visit Maison Shaps, I believe, at gmail.com, but we can confirm that. And so it's the best, though, is to give me a heads up, because my office is no longer in the same facility as our tasting room. So often I'm not there unless I know I have to be there. Same with my colleagues. So the best you can do is to let us know you're coming. I believe in Virginia, you're open every day.
Yep.
So it's less important to tell them you're coming. They're really happy to see you any day of the week. We're really a small team in Burgundy. So as much as a heads up you can give us as possible, the happier and more available we can be.
No, I appreciate the responding to email. I learned that from a friend who now lives in France. Had to have him call a few places because he was just like, France does not do email that much. You typically call, and I'm like, well, I don't speak French, so that would be an unfortunate call in a lot of places.
Yeah, email or social media, but email is usually preferable, and we're usually very accommodating. We just need to know.
Sure. Okay, great. All right. Well, the last bit of this, I always do what I call a speed round. And it doesn't mean that you have to like answer it super fast. It's more like don't think about it too much because otherwise the question would take forever. It's just kind of like top of mind, what comes to mind. So, for example, the first one is, what is your favorite wine at the moment?
Of our wines?
No, I think in general.
Just in general, yeah. It can be your wines. You could answer both for your wines and a non-your wine. Just my thought is kind of like, what are you reaching for right now? What is kind of what's really exciting, or what are you drinking now?
I often reach for an Alsatian white, like a Sylvaner, Gewürztraminer, or Riesling. Different styles, but usually a Gewürztraminer Sylvaner blend is my go-to. I really like the freshness and the little maybe bit of sweetness on the back of the palate. What did you have for lunch today?
Oh, actually today I had a Catalan wine, white wine. Actually, I had a great Savoie wine the other night here that blew me away. It's well known. He's from Domaine de L'Ardoise. Was he there? Yeah, L'Ardoise. It was a great blend of Persin and Mondouse, 2017. That kind of blew me away. It was a great wine, really great wine. But anyway, no, I try everything. I don't really.
Yeah, we had Lebanese wine yesterday at lunch.
Yep, we had a Lebanese wine.
We're curious people.
Yes, I love it. Okay, how about favorite wine region that you've ever visited?
Tuscany. I think Tuscany is incredible. I think the wines have big personalities, but just the wine region itself is incredible. We had fun in the Douro the other day.
Yeah.
The other year. Last year.
And not necessarily port wines, but more.
No, we did like some Portuguese, like field blends,
that was eye-opening. Some, people are making some really great wines now there. Still good value. I love Corsican wines.
Oh yeah, that's your big thing.
I like
he likes Corse. She likes the wines.
That's the second time that's come up with when talking to somebody who knows the French world of wine. Corsica, she mentioned it as like one of the ones that's coming up to be on the lookout for. Cool. Okay, how about a wine region? So on the flip side, a wine region you'd like to visit.
I think I would like to visit Tokai because I like sweet wines, and I've never been to Hungary, so why not?
On my list is definitely Greece and do some of the Greek wines. I'd like to get into some of those.
It's a combination of wine and where the wine is growing. I think it's not. Yeah. It's like what's the travel scene in the wine region? It's like, Greece. Yeah. Greece is always a good idea, but
that's one that I haven't gotten to yet. So
yes, well, and especially with Greece, with like all of the indigenous varietals and so many unique wines that you're really only going to find in Greece.
Exactly.
Okay, this is one that people don't love. But again, just the first thing that comes to mind, it doesn't have to be like the best of the best. What favorite wine and food pairing?
Oh, that's easy. Cheese and wine. This is not hard at all. And then to go deeper, because I'm sure you're going to ask me which cheese and wine, I'm always, always, always a fan of the Virginia Petit Manseng with a blue cheese.
Ooh.
I love the sweet and salty. I love it with like a fudgy or blue, my favorite. And I also really like, if we're going to go back to Boozéron with a goat cheese. And that's it. All you need is cheese and wine, really. So what's other food? No, but
what's my favorite, like
food and wine pairing?
Food and wine pairing?
Yeah, that's hard to eat. We like to eat.
Yeah, that's lately I'm big into stewed pork cheeks with some pomard.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I like it. Hannah, I noticed both of the wines you mentioned were white wines. What are your thoughts on pairing like red wine and cheese?
Great. No problem. Pomard and Epoisse. Easy. Anything pairs with cheese and wine. So I have a whole list. Yeah, I really like the way the acidity in those two whites that I mentioned really kind of play with the creaminess of the cheese. But you can have tannins play with earthiness in cheese. You can have dark berry fruits in wine play with kind of and the animal flavor. There's a whole gamut of things to play with. It just depends what you like and what you're looking for. But I don't discriminate. White wine, red wine, rosé, sparkling. I can pair it all. I can drink it all.
I'm with you. Well, okay, actually, now I just have to ask, if people want to do a cheese and wine pairing with you in Burgundy, is that an option, and how do they book that?
That is an option that is currently offered through a separate platform called Lactique 974, and I can email you that. And that is a company I've started this year to really focus on cheese education and cheese and wine experiences in Burgundy. More often than not, I do use Maison Shaps wines, but I also create tailored experiences to kind of what the consumer and the client is looking for.
Cool. Okay, yeah, we'll make sure to throw that in the show notes as well. All right, last speed round question. What is a wine that surprised you lately, good or bad?
I think the one I just mentioned, that was the surprise that I had. So that kind of
the Savoie?
The Savoie, yeah.
Savoie wine?
Yeah, the Persimmon Douce blend. That was, I mean, I've had them before, but that one was exceptional. It really fooled me.
What did you think of the Lebanese wine?
It was okay. It was good.
I was drinking lemonade.
She didn't have. I had it. It was nice, but it was kind of, there was only one kind of. It was a blend with local grapes, but also French varietals. So it was a little disappointing. It was Viognier and Chardonnay blended into I forget the variety, would begin with an O that I never had before. That
I should know this. Yeah, I just did it wasn't Odessa, was it? Or no, that's the black grape that they have.
Yes, I can't remember the name now, but it was good, but it wasn't, you wanted something more authentic. That wasn't, so it was a little disappointing. We didn't know that when we got the bottle.
I guess if I had to say, last night I had, for the first time in a very long time, our dessert wine from our Virginia winery, the Raison d'Etre 2017. And I really liked that it was, still, it's what, 7 years later, it really, really like rich, but still had acidity, and the vintage surprised me that it was like tasting so fresh and giving a lot. And it was one of the wines I really liked when I was in the US, and I haven't had the opportunity to have it recently. And that was a nice surprise.
Yeah. I love that you highlight too, that you like sweet wines. I feel like so many people in the wine world now, sweet wine is not given the attention it deserves. So it's nice hearing wine experts be like, I like sweet wine, so we can keep encouraging more people to try the sweeter wines. But wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much again for joining me during, again, a crazy busy time. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited. Your wines are on their way to me, so we'll get to taste those again soon. But yeah, thank you again so much for joining.
Yeah, and don't hesitate if you ever make it to Virginia or back to
Virginia.
Virginia has a really, we're talking about deep wine kind of experiences and wine culture. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need any suggestions or want to come to our other property. And yeah, we really appreciate the opportunity to share our story.
Wonderful. We'll have a great event tonight. And yeah, hopefully we'll see each other again soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. Of course, if you're taking a trip to Burgundy or Virginia, or you live in the Virginia area, or if you live in the Burgundy area, heck, I remember when I was out there, somebody messaged me on Instagram and said, hey, I live here. This is so cool seeing you in my city. And I'm like, oh my God, you live here? That is so cool. But anyway, I highly recommend putting Maison Shaps and Virginia Wine Works on your must-visit list. And if I was going back to France, I'd 100% book a cheese and wine pairing with Hanna, so be sure to do that as well. I will put all the links in the show notes so you can do that. If you love this episode as much as I did, please just take 1 second, go on your app and either rate it, so there's a spot where you can leave, I'm suggesting 5 stars, but it's, up to you. How many stars do you feel like this was? And if you're on Apple Podcasts, you can also write a review. This does not have to be a paragraph, an essay. You can literally say 1 sentence about what you like about this podcast. It really, really helps me and helps my podcast grow. So I would so appreciate if you could do that for me. In next week's episode, we'll be continuing the France and French wine mini-series, and I'll be sharing more about the tastings that I did in Beaujolais and Burgundy. I was just going to do Burgundy, but then we had such an amazing tasting in Beaujolais that I was like, I can't not talk about this with you. I have to highlight this amazing winery. So we will be talking about that. And of course, sharing everything that I learned along the way, because I learned so many new things that I never would have thought of here in the US and while I was there. Thanks again for listening. And if you want to learn more about wine, come follow me at Cork and Fizz on Instagram. And if you're interested in exploring new wines and joining an incredible community of wine lovers, be sure to sign up for my virtual tasting club, The Cork Crew. You can actually come join your first tasting with The Cork Crew for free. All you have to do is go to corkandfizz.com/free class pass. You don't even have to enter a credit card, nothing. You just sign up for a class pass, choose the next event you want to come to, and you can come see what this cool crew is all about. All right, cheers!